Let me start this episode of the podcast by asking you a question. And that question is, what is your website for? Is it just brochureware, so somewhere where someone can learn more about your business, or are you aiming it to be something more such as a lead generation machine? Well, firstly, it definitely should be that something more, but there are some fundamental do's and don'ts about getting your website right, and also some key strategies to making it generate leads for you. So that's what I am going to cover in today's episode of the Agency Accelerator podcast. Now, this is a super action-packed episode, and I'm going to be covering a lot of bases, so go and grab yourself a pen and paper, or if you're like me, you're remarkable, to take notes so that you can leave with an action plan from this episode. But without further ado, let's get on with today's show.
Accelerate your agency's profitable growth with tools, tips, and value-added interviews with your host, agency owner and coach, Rob DaCosta.
So the first thing I want to talk about is making sure that your website isn't full of we. Yes, you heard me right, making sure your website isn't full of we. And what I mean by that is so many websites start off by saying we do this and we do that, and we were founded in 1974 and we have these amazing great clients and this is what we've done for them and this is what they say about us. But fundamentally, when your reader arrives at your website, they just don't care about that. You haven't built any know, like and trust yet. So your first job is to start building empathy with your reader. And you're not going to do that if you start off by telling them all about you. What you need to do is show them that you understand them and you understand some of the challenges they have, so that you're immediately starting building some rapport and empathy. Because then the reader sits there and thinks, oh, this is interesting, tell me more. And that tell me more translates into an action of them scrolling down the page or clicking on some links and digging deeper into your website. And as they dig deeper, that's when they're going to be interested to learn more about you. So that homepage, that starting point when someone arrives at your site, has to be about them, and you have to show them very, very quickly that you understand them and the challenges they face day in and day out. Now, bear in mind, someone might have found your website via Google, and therefore they will have found thousands of other websites as well. So they'll be quickly scrolling in, and you've got to stop them from scrolling on to the next search option and stay with you. And you're going to do that by showing them that you understand them. So let's just spend a few minutes talking about the anatomy of a great website. And it starts by getting the above the fold part right. Now, what I mean by above the fold, if you're not clear about that terminology, is everything that they see before they scroll down. And you need to be mindful about what they'll see on a mobile device as much as a desktop device. And in that above the fold real estate, you have a matter of seconds to get someone's attention. So show them you understand them and start building empathy. And then also, in the above the fold section, you need to offer them some value. You want to be really clear what action you want them to take. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So the first part of the website needs to identify with the challenges and pains that they have, and then you can offer them some value to start to solve that pain or challenge. And then as they scroll further down, you want some social proof. This is who you've worked with, so that they want to align themselves with some of these great names that you've already worked with. So if you have some names that will be recognizable to your potential reader, then list them, put their logos on, and so on. And then a bit further down the page, you're going to start to detail more about you and also more about the services that you offer. And then at the bottom of the page, you're going to have the next action steps that you want them to take. Now, of course, you're going to have other pages such as an About Us page, the services you offer and how they can contact you and so on. But let me just kind of contradict myself a bit here, because if you have an About Us page, well, guess what? It's all about you. It's not about them. So rather than having About Us, I often say to people, why don't you list something like how we can help you as the reader? And then again, you're making it about them. So you're going to have those typical pages, and I'm not going to dive into them too much today. What I really want to focus on is how you're going to generate leads from your website. So if you get that initial homepage design right, then it's going to make your website sticky, and someone's going to want to learn more and read on and click on other links as well. So those are the key kind of anatomies that you want to focus on your homepage. The next thing you need to think about is how you are going to drive traffic to your website, because it actually doesn't matter whether you have an amazing website or a terrible website. If you're not driving traffic, then no one's going to see it anyway. So having a great website is one part of the journey, but of course the other part is driving your ideal target customer to your website. And obviously you want to make sure that you have optimized it for all the search terms that your ideal target customer will type into Google. You might invest in some SEO services so that you are driving that traffic, and I would highly recommend people at least have an SEO specialist look at your website to make sure it's optimized, even if you're not working with them on an ongoing basis. You may also choose to run some ads, whether that be Facebook or Google or YouTube ads, to drive traffic to your website. You're going to use social media, so when you're posting on your social media platforms, make sure that you are driving traffic back to your website because you want people to take action. A really important point here that I've talked about many times is remember that your ultimate goal with your website is to generate leads, and the way you're going to generate leads is by getting people to sign up to your email list, and then you're going to nurture them through your list. And one of the key reasons for doing this is because you own all of those names on your list. Whereas if you're just relying on social media to generate leads and drive traffic to your website, you need to remember that you don't own those social media contacts. You're renting them, if you like, and they can be taken away from you at any time. And I've told the story before about a client who had, I don't know what it was, 10,000 followers on Instagram, and then their account got hacked. And so Instagram's policy was to shut them down and to say, create a new account. And of course, recently Donald Trump had, I think, about 90 million followers on Twitter, and then he had his account closed down and he immediately lost those 90 million followers. Now, if he'd been smart enough to try and encourage them to join his mailing list, then he'd have been in control of that list. So social media is a fantastic platform. You want to drive traffic from all your different channels where your target audience hangs out, drive them to your website, get them to take action when they get to your website, which will mean giving you their email address so you can then continue to nurture them through your email list. Now, another way to drive traffic back to your website is through partnerships. So it could be that you are a guest on a podcast like this, or it could be that you're writing a guest blog for someone, or it could be that you've got some kind of agreed freebie swap with somebody. But if you have partners that are targeting the same audience with you but with a different offer, then that is your ideal partner. And if that partner happens to have a much bigger audience than you, then they're even more of an ideal partner. So if you can get them to put you in front of their audience by offering their audience some value, such as being a great guest on the podcast and actually teaching something of value, then that's how you will drive traffic back to your website. And then when they get to your website, of course, because you've got the design of it right, you're going to be really clear about what next step you want them to take. So that's just a few ideas in a really quick nutshell to give you some thoughts around how you can drive traffic to your website. And of course, you want to be doing all of these things, and you want to be doing them on a continual basis. Everything I talk about and every solid marketing platform takes time, and you have to be committed to doing it on a regular basis if you want to see results. And there are very few kind of get rich quick schemes where you just do a little bit of marketing and suddenly you're going to get loads of leads. It just doesn't work like that, despite what some people might try and lead you to believe. Now, in episode 79 of the podcast, just a few episodes ago, I talked about how to create a lead magnet to generate new subscribers to your list. So I'm not going to go into that in too much detail because you can go back and listen to that episode. But obviously, one of the key ways that you are going to convert website visitors into leads and then convert those leads into prospects and clients is by having a piece of killer content, a lead magnet, which I'll talk more about in a moment, that you can offer your audience on your website in return for them giving you their email address, which then goes into your email automation system, and you nurture them through that. So there are 4 stages you want to focus on with your website. First of all, driving traffic to your website. Second of all, once they're there, build empathy with your reader so that they want to stay on your website and learn more. Then number 3, you're going to offer them a piece of killer content, a lead magnet that they're going to download, and then that puts them in your email list. So then the 4th stage is to nurture them through your email list so that you can convert them into a prospect and then a client. Now, talking of understanding the conversion process for you, I have a really good tool called a timed conversion tool. I'm going to put a link in the show notes and you can grab a copy of this. And this will basically help you analyze how long it takes a lead coming into your world, i.e. someone who's just found about you, visited your website, downloaded something, and you nurture them to the point of them becoming a client. So what is that time to conversion? And you'll often be surprised at how long it takes. I've done this work for myself and it takes on average about 12 months for someone learning about me to buying from me. And it's really useful to know what that time to conversion is for you so that you can make sure that you have nurturing content to help move people along that buyer's journey. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes to a time to conversion tool that you can download and do some analysis and work out what that length of time is for you so you can make sure you have a really good marketing content that will nurture people along the sales funnel. So let's just focus on the 3rd point I mentioned in that 4-step process, which is producing a piece of killer content. Now, if you really know your audience and you've done your work on defining your customer avatar or your customer persona, again, I'm going to put a link to my ebook on that. So if you haven't done that, go grab a copy of it and go and create your customer avatar, because it will be really helpful. And you will understand the pains that they suffer from, the challenges they have. So that piece of killer content, that lead magnet you're going to create and you're going to promote it on the above the fold part of your website is going to address one of the core pain points that they have. And so you're going to create this ebook, this guide, this cheat sheet, this top tips, this video training, whatever is something that your audience is going to digest and something that you feel comfortable creating. That's your piece of killer content. Now, let me dispel 2 myths at this stage. First of all, you only need one piece of great killer content. When I created my website, I created loads and loads of pieces of killer content, ebooks and guides that you can download. In fact, if you go on my website, you'll see there's probably 20 different things that you can download. But you don't need 20 things, you need one piece of content. So that's myth number 1. And like I said, if you understand your audience, then this piece of content will address one of their core pain points. And the second myth I want to dispel is that it doesn't have to be long. I think what puts a lot of people off is that they think it needs to be the best thing since sliced bread and it needs to be 20 pages long or 40 pages long because people will judge me based on how big this thing is. Well, actually the opposite is true, because most of our target customers, i.e. people like you, for me, are time poor, so they don't have time to read a 20-page thing, and they won't be judging how good it is based on the length. They'll be judging it on the quality of it and does it help them solve one of their core pain points. So that's the second myth. It doesn't have to be long. In fact, it could just be a 1-pager. It could be top tips on optimizing your website, or top 10 tips on how to implement your own SEO, or top tips of what a journalist is looking for in a good press release. So it doesn't have to be long, it just has to be good and address some of their killer points. Now, kind of a bonus thing here is that you probably think I need to create something that's truly original. And yes, of course, you should definitely not plagiarize. And if you can create something that hasn't been done before, then brilliant. But the chances of the thing that you're going to create not existing in some form or another on the internet already is very remote. So your goal is to package it up in a way that your ideal target customer will find really easy to digest. So those are the 2 myths I just wanted to dispel about your killer content. So you're going to create this piece of content. You can make it look pretty by outsourcing it to a designer or designing it yourself. And then you're going to embed it on your website. Now, the key here is that they have to give you their email address in order to get it. It's like this transaction. I'm going to pay for this thing with my email address, and I'm going to tick a box that confirms I'm happy to receive emails from you in the future so that you're GDPR compliant. And in return, I'm going to give you this piece of great content. So that's the deal that you are making with your reader. Now, once they have given you your email address, it's going to go into your email automation system. Now, I've talked about email before in episode 55, so you can go back and listen to that. So I'm not going to go into picking an email automation system. But a really key point here, really good tip, is make sure that you deliver your killer content, your lead magnet, via the first email that you send the subscriber. Don't deliver it on your website. And the reason for that is because if you deliver it on your website, I could just put any old bad email address in and I'll still get access to it. Whereas if you deliver it via the first email, then the reader has to give you a good email address, and you want to make it clear that in your form that they fill in that you want to ask them to give you their best email address, and you will deliver the lead magnet via an email. So that's a tip that's worth noting, and something that I see a lot of people get wrong, where they just embed the file, the ebook, onto their website. Don't do that. Deliver it via your email system. And then once you've got them in your email, you're going to create a sequence of nurturing emails that dig into the guide a bit more or talk about some other things. And your goal is to get them to take the next step on the buyer's journey. But again, I don't want to go into that in too much detail today. I've got other episodes about that, because today the focus is on making your website work for you and how to generate leads from your website. So that's the purpose. So anyway, create the content, deliver it via your email system, and then nurture your reader through your email system, and you will start moving them from cold lead to warm lead to prospect to customer to a raving fan, which is obviously your goal. And as I say, if you've done your time to conversion, you'll know how long that journey takes typically, and you'll be then thinking about, well, if it takes me 12 months, what kind of content can I use to nurture people and keep building that know, like, and trust with them to the point that I'm still in their face when they're ready to buy. Because humans are kind of like sieves. If we don't constantly stay front of mind with them, they'll forget about us and they'll buy from someone else. And this all starts with your website. I always view my website as the center of my universe, and I want to drive traffic through all the different means that I've talked about today to my website. And then when I get my reader to my website, I want to quickly build empathy with them by showing I understand them, and then get them to take action. Now, this take action needs to be on that top of above the fold stuff. You can't afford to have it buried somewhere deep in your website on the assumption that your reader will actually ever get to that page. Because remember, as I said earlier, they might just be searching on Google. You might be one of thousands of results they've come up with, and they are quickly visiting your website, and you have literally a few seconds to grab their attention. And if it's not clear what you want them to do next, then they will probably leave. And remember, that to do next action is to get them to download your lead magnet or your killer content. And that has to evidently very quickly demonstrate that it has some value to them. So those are my tips about making sure that your website is generating leads for you, making sure that it's not full of we, i.e. it's not just about you, but it's about your reader. And then as they dig into your website and they're thinking, tell me more, that's where you start talking about you, who you are, what you do, how long you've been around, who you've done it for, sharing some testimonials, sharing some case studies, and so on and so on. But that needs to be further into your website once your reader has got some connection with you. So I hope those tips are useful. As I said, this was a bit of an action-packed episode, so I hope you've taken some notes. I hope that gives you an action plan of things that you might want to review your website or get changed, or maybe some ideas on creating that lead magnet, that killer content for your website, and also perhaps working out exactly who your ideal target customer is if you're not clear about that. So hope that was useful. As ever, please make sure you've hit the subscribe button. I would love you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, because as you know, that helps the algorithm show me to more agency owners just like you. But other than that, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I will see you next Thursday for the next episode of the Agency Accelerator podcast.